Welcome everybody to our final installment of Cat TED Talks for this session. אנחנו מאוד שמחים שאתם מצטרפים, מצטרפות לערב. קודם כל אני מבקש מכולם, מי שיכול, מי שרוצה, להדליק את המצלמה. הרבה יותר כיף לדבר עם אנשים ולא לדבר עם קוביות בזום. So if you guys don't mind, turn on your cameras. It would be great to see you all. הערב יש לנו שתי דוברות שדברו בעברית ושני דוברים שדברו באנגלית. ואנחנו מתחילים עם עטרת גוטליב.
Zev, just a second.
Yes.
I tried to turn the camera on, but it says the host isn't letting me.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Whoever the host is, I don't know who it could be.
That's me. All right. Okay. All right. Now can you turn it on? So all those people who didn't have it on, it was because of me. Okay, so try doing, starting your videos, everyone. Simon, is it working now?
Yeah, it's working now.
Okay, fantastic. Very good. Okay, אז אנחנו מאוד שמחים לארח את עטרת גוטליב, שחזרה משליחות. אני זוכר, זה היה לפני שנה שהתחילה הקורונה, אם אני זוכר נכון, בטיסת חילוץ כזה, ממינכן, את ויונתן ואיתן חזרת ממינכן, ואנחנו מאוד מאוד שמחים לשמוע על השליחות שלכם. בבקשה. אני מזכיר לכולם שאם יש שאלות, להשאיר אותם עד הסוף, ובבקשה.
אז היי לכולם, כתבו בהודעה שאולי לא כולם מכירים, אז למי שלא מכיר, אולי יצטרפו לקהילה אחרי שאני הייתי, סתם. אז אני עטרת, ביתו של הרב, בסדר, קופרמן במקור. אז קצת על השליחות שלנו, אני קצת אדבר איך יוצאים לשליחות, קצת על איך הגענו לזה. מה זה שליחות באירופה בניגוד בכמה מילים? יש אנשים שיותר מכם פחות, כמובן שלא הכל מוכלל לכולם, אבל באופן כללי. קצת אתגרים ונקודות משמעותיות ומה תכלס עשינו. אז קודם כל יציאה לשליחות, אני אישית מאוד מאוד רציתי לצאת לשליחות כבר מאזור גיל 18, כשחיפשתי שירות לאומי, בדרך כלל זה שנה שנייה, אבל בגלל שאני ויונתן בעלי ככה יצאנו מגיל די צעיר, אמרתי ששנה שנייה של שירות לאומי כנראה לא תהיה, אני כבר התחלתי ללמוד, וככה אחרי שסיימתי את התואר, אני פתאום התחלתי לחשוב על זה שוב פעם, ואז זה פעם ראשונה ששאלתי את יונתן מה הוא חושב על הנושא, האמת שממש כל הזמן הזה שכאילו יצאנו, היינו ביחד, התחתנו, ממש לא העלינו את הנושא הזה בכלל על השולחן, לא יודעת למה, והופתעתי לגלות שגם הוא בעניין, זה ממש ככה זרם לנו ביחד, ואז התחלנו ברורים, תהליך של יציאה לשליחות זה תהליך מאוד ארוך, מתחילים אותו באזור אחרי החגים, עד פסח יש מיונים, ממש הרבה פעמים צריך להגיע לרעיונות בנפרד, ביחד, קבוצתי, יחידני, ואז אחרי פסח בדרך כלל מתאמים לך קהילה. אז לנו ככה היה קצת בעיות בשנה, כאילו, עברנו את שני התהליכים, גם בסוכנות וגם בבני עקיבא, ולא מצאנו בסופו של דבר קהילה, כמה קהילות, בסוף קהילות ביטלו, הגענו לקיץ, בהנחה ששנה הבאה נשארת כרגיל, ואנחנו לא יוצאים לשום מקום, ואני אמרתי לא אכפת לי, אני שנה הבאה נוסעת לאיפשהו, אז אני אמצא מקום, אז ממש ישבתי באינטרנט וחיפשתי עוד ארגון, ואז הגענו לארגון שאנחנו יצאנו דרכו, ארגון לוי, היום הוא שייך למזרחי העולמי, סליחה עם קצת ראשי רקע של איתן, כולנו מכירים את העניין הזו, ובאמת ככה זה, ופעם ראשונה שמענו פתאום, היינו רגילים לשמוע על שליחות בארצות הברית, לונדון, אוסטרליה, מקומות כאלה בדרך כלל, ואז פעם ראשונה הציעו לנו את השליחות במינכן, שבהתחלה בכלל לשמוע שליחות בגרמניה הייתה נראית לנו כאילו וואו לא, אבל הבנו ככה אחרי שקצת בראנו שזה באמת מקום שאין בו שליחים, ובניגוד למקומות אחרים שיש יהדות, ומזה אני גם אגיע קצת לתפקיד שלנו, מקומות אחרים שיש קהילה יהודית מאוד חזקה, שמכירים את היהדות דווקא במקומות האלה, ממש לא. לא מכירים, אין בכלל שליחים בדרך כלל, אין כזה דבר שליחים בבתי ספר, אז דווקא השליחות יותר משמעותית. אז משם הגענו למינכן, ובאמת השליחות שלנו הייתה עבודה עם סטודנטים. הרעיון של הארגון שדרכו אנחנו יצאנו, זה באמת לעבוד עם סטודנטים, כי זה באמת השלב שהוא הכי יכול להיות קרוב למניעת התבוללות. כי להיות בבתי ספר ונוער, כמובן שזה גם חשוב, אבל הרבה פעמים כשאנחנו מתבגרים אנחנו משתנים ואנחנו כבר שוכחים, או שכאילו מה שלמדנו בבית ספר נשאר כמו איזושהי מורשת נחמדה, אבל לא משהו שניישם אותו בפועל. ובאמת להיות בית יהודי לסטודנטים זה באמת לתפוס אותם ככה בשלב שהם יוצאים ומכירים וכבר ממש נפתחים לעולם ונמצאים באוניברסיטאות, ולתת להם את המקום היהודי. אז ככה באמת זו הייתה עבודה. עשינו גם פעילויות באמצע שבוע לסטודנטים וגם שבתות. שבתות ערכנו ובאמת היו אצלנו כל הזמן סטודנטים, וזה באמת הייתה עבודה. לא היינו בגני ילדים ומקומות כאלה, היה לנו בשבת, עשינו תפילת ילדים וכאלה דברים, אבל באמת רוב העבודה עם הצעירים, כאילו עם גדולים. עוד משהו על שליחות באירופה, שהיא קצת שונה משליחות מהקהילות שבדרך כלל רגילים לשמוע מארצות הברית. שליחות באירופה זה שליחות שהיא מאוד, שליחים זה דבר פחות מקובל, לא כל כך מכירים את הדבר הזה, אין איזה תפקיד בקהילה. סתם לדוגמה, אנחנו באנו למינכן לבדוק, לפני שטסנו לשליחות, הגענו לבית כנסת והיינו בטוחים שכולם יודעים מי אנחנו, כי בטוח כולם סיפרו על זה שבאו שליחים לבדוק, ואף אחד לא ידע מי אנחנו. כאילו אנשים אמרנו, מי אתם, מה אתם עושים פה? והיינו בשוק, כאילו לא הבנו, אבל הגענו לקהילה, מה זאת אומרת? אז ממש היינו צריכים להסביר לאנשים שאנחנו שליחים ושבאנו לעשות שליחות, זאת אומרת ממש היינו צריכים ככה להצדיק את המקום שלנו. אנשים ממש לא כאילו הבינו מה אנחנו רוצים מהם. בשבת אחרי שהחלטנו וטסנו, אז ביום הראשון שהגענו למינכן, המשפט הראשון שאנחנו שמענו זה לא איזה כיף שבאתם, ברוכים הבאים, זה זרקו אתכם לפה בלי גלגל הצלה. זה מה שמי שהיה אחראי עלינו מהקהילה אמר לנו, זרקו אתכם לפה בלי גלגל הצלה, שיהיה לכם בהצלחה. כאילו אוקיי, אוקיי, איזה קבלת פנים נחמדה, אין אף אחד שכאילו יעריך אותך. גם רוב האנשים שם לא יהודים אבל לא שומרי כשרות, ואי אפשר ממש להתארח שם אצל אנשים, זה ממש בכוחות עצמנו. אז ככה כדי להכיר, אנחנו ממש בשבוע הראשון הזמנו אלינו לבית את כל האנשים שהם קשורים לקהילה, את הארגוני סטודנטים, את הארגונים של ממש את הנציגים מהסוכנות היהודית, פשוט נתנו להם לשבת אצלנו בבית ולדבר קצת פוליטיקה, רק כדי להבין מה קורה בקהילה, מי נגד מי, כאילו כדי ממש להכיר, כי אף אחד לא עושה את זה בשבילך. כמובן שיש קהילות באירופה שהן קצת יותר מקבלות ויותר תומכות, אבל באמת הרבה קהילות ממש צריך הארגון קצת דוחף שליחים לתוך הקהילה, וכאילו, כי זה חשוב, אבל הקהילה לא ממש מוכנה לזה ולא ממש מכירה את זה. עוד קצת לגבי אתגרים, ואז אני אגע לשתי נקודות משמעותיות. גם מבחינת אתגרים, בגלל שבאמת הקהילה פחות מכירה, אז גם כשאנחנו הגענו לשם בהתחלה, ממש הסטודנטים, זה אירופה, אוקיי? זה אנשים שכאילו תני לי לשבת וללמוד. ראיתי איזה סטנדאפ אחד שמישהו נורווגי עשה, והוא אומר, מה אתם רוצים, כאילו אתה רוצה לקבוע עם מישהו, אז הוא אומר לך, אני לא יכול, עוד שבועיים ביום שני, אתה יכול לבוא אליי? הוא אומר לך, לא, אז אתה אומר לו, למה, מה אתה עושה? קבעתי לשבת על הספה ולנוח, כאילו זה השגרה שלהם, זאת אומרת, למה אתם לא יכולים? כי, מה זאת אומרת, ממש צריך למשוך אותם ככה בשביל לצאת מהבית, להגיע לך, זה לא איזה כיף, פעילות לסטודנטים, וכל הבית מלא ב50 סטודנטים, ממש לא. פעילות פתיחה הראשונה, פרסמנו והודענו והכנתי ערימות של פנקייקים, והגיע לי סטודנט אחד, ואני כזה, אוקיי, מפה צריך להתחיל. במסיבת חנוכה שהשקענו ממש פרסמנו והתקשרנו סטודנט, והגיעו 8 סטודנטים, כאילו מסיבה שלרוב מגיעים 30-40. אז ככה זה ממש קשה לשכנע אותם להגיע, לאט לאט הם התחילו להגיע, עוד סטודנט ועוד סטודנט ועוד סטודנט, עד שממש הגענו לכבר ארוחות שבת של 20 סטודנטים, שזה כבר היה ממש כזה וואו. מינכן ספציפית גם מאוד, מקום שמאוד מאוד קשה למשוך סטודנטים, זה לא כמו ברלין, שהווייב של הסטודנטים הוא יותר לצאת ומסיבות, וזה סבבה לצאת לאנשים. מינכן זה אנשים שהם יותר מסוגרים, יש להם את הראש שלהם, את החיים שלהם, תתערבו לי יותר מדי, אז ככה צריך ממש למשוך אותם. וכן נקודות משמעותיות שבאמת, כמו שאמרתי, בגלל שפחות מכירים את זה, בגלל שיש, אמנם יש קהילה יהודית מאוד מכובדת, ויש בית כנסת גדול והכל, אבל יש המון צעירים שלא מחוברים לבית כנסת, לא מגיעים, הם לא מגיעים שם לתפילות, אז דווקא אלינו לבית, לאט לאט כשהם ככה התחלנו יותר להתפרסם, אז כן הם הרגישו יותר בנוח להגיע, כי זה לא במסגרת של הרב, או משהו שהוא יותר מדי כאילו אורתודוקסי, הבית שלנו היה מאוד דתי, אבל כאילו פחות מתחבר עליהם למשהו שהוא בית כנסת וכאילו כבד יותר. אז לדוגמה עשינו הדלקת נרות בחנוכה, אז הייתה מישהי, זוג סטודנטים שאחרי כך גם התחתנו, שאמרה לנו, זה פעם ראשונה שעשיתי הדלקת נרות חנוכה, פעם ראשונה שכאילו בכלל אני יודעת מה זה, שהרגשתי מה זה הדלקת נרות ולהכין סופגניות, אז זה ככה היה ממש משמעותי, גם הרבה פעמים בארוחות שבת היינו מתחילים ארוחה יחסית מוקדם, ותמיד הם גם מאוד מנומסים, אז הם לא נעים להם ללכת, אז תמיד היינו עושים נקודות יציאה קראנו לזה, אחרי דלקת המזון היינו אומרים, אוקיי, מי שרוצה להישאר יכול, מי שרוצה לעזוב יכול, כי ממש צריך להנגיש להם את זה, כי הם תמיד, איפה הם לא ילכו, כי הם יגידו, אוקיי, הלכתי, הם תמיד יש להם תירוץ, אני צריך ללמוד, אני צריך זה, אז הם תמיד היו נשארים עד ממש ממש מאוחר, והם שואלים וממש מפתחים טיעונים על כל מיני נושאים של ציונות ויהדות, וזה היה ממש כיף לראות את זה, איך הם מתעניינים, זה באמת פעם ראשונה שהם נגעו בכל מיני נושאים כאלה, אז זה מבחינה משמעותית איתם, ומבחינת השליחות עצמה, וגם מבחינה אישית יש משהו ממש ממש מיוחד בלהיות רק אנחנו, המשפחה שלנו רחוקים מכולם מהמשפחה ומהחברים, וכאילו יש את השקט ממש כזה, למשפחה הקטנה והגרעינית, וזהו, זה ככה ממש בקצרה על השליחות שלנו.
תודה רבה עטרת. אם מישהו רוצה לשאול שאלה, אתם יכולים לשים את עצמכם על unmute, בבקשה. כן,
עטרת, איך הסתדרתם מבחינת לשון?
מבחינת מה?
לשון, בגרמניה.
אנחנו דיברנו באנגלית, הסטודנטים שם כולם מדברים אנגלית, בשונה מישראל, סתם. וגם בקהילה, זה כן קצת מאתגר, כי לא ידענו גרמנית בכלל, גם זו שפה שמאוד קשה ללמוד, אז ככה בכל שאר המקומות, כאילו באמת דיברנו רק באנגלית, לפעמים לא כל כך הבינו אותנו, אבל מבחינת ההתנהלות עם הסטודנטים, שזה היה מרכז השליחות שלנו, פשוט באנגלית.
יש לי שאלה, האם יש הרבה ישראלים שלומדים שם?
לא, כמעט ולא. היה אולי ישראלי אחד.
אוקיי. בסדר, יש עוד שאלות?
Chateret, can I ask, you're not much older than the students that you were working with. Was that in your favor or not?
בני כמה הם? סליחה, אני הבנתי.
The students weren't much younger than you, and there you are married with a baby. Was that strange for you, for them?
לא, האמת שהם ממש התלהבו מזה, סליחה שאני לא בעברית. ממש התלהבו מהעניין שאנחנו זוג עם ילד, יש בזה משהו מאתגר, סליחה שאני אומרת, זוג בנות או זוג בנים, הרבה פעמים קל להם בהתחלה למשוך יותר סטודנטים, כי הם תמיד רווקים ורווקות, אז תמיד כאילו אופציה, אז בהתחלה קל יותר אם אתה זוג רווקים וזוג רווקות, אבל אחר כך יש משהו יותר נחמד בזה שהם מרגישים שמגיעים לבית של משפחה, אז כאילו יש בזה משהו יותר משפחתי כזה, יותר חמים, מאשר לדירת רווקים כזאת. אז דווקא הם מאוד אהבו את זה, מאוד התחברו לזה.
בסדר.
לי יש שאלה, נשאר לכם איזשהו קשר איתם? עם מישהו משם?
עם סטודנטים מסוימים, לא עם כולם, אבל עם הקבועים שהגיעו, אז כן, יצא לנו לדבר מדי פעם, וברור להם שהם יבואו לארץ, אז הבית שלנו פתוח.
יופי, מקסים.
אוקיי, תודה רבה עטרת ויונתן ואיתן, ששמענו רק קצת. And I have great pleasure in inviting Simon. If everyone else can just put yourselves back on mute. Simon, can we see you? There we go. Simon, if you can unmute yourself. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to be singing your introduction, the title of your thing. I got pains, they'll melt. Arthritis, I got pains, they're multiplying. And I'm losing control.
Can you hear this?
Oh yeah, here you go. Go for it.
Okay, that's where it ends, I'm afraid. There's not going to be any song and dance routine, at least until the next Simcha. You'll have to wait till then, I'm afraid. Now, is everyone on video? Because I'd like a hands up here. I'd like to see a hands up of anyone who knows somebody that has had arthritis or chronic pain. You can include myself, but no, don't include myself. I saw other people, okay, so you do know some people. So according to the statistics in the US, 1 in 3 people between the ages of 18 and 64 have arthritis. And above that age, it's even more. So it's quite a common disease in the United States. And there's not just one type of arthritis. Many people have heard of rheumatoid arthritis, but there's 100 different types of arthritis, and including arthritis that children can get. So there's a lot of different types. Just to introduce myself, my name is Simon Brook. I've had psoriatic arthritis for 28 years. That's over half my life. And I've kindly shared that disease, not literally, but I've shared it with my wife, Claire, and my 4 children who have maybe been traumatized by that. But looking on the bright side, my promising career as an Olympic athlete was not ruined because I was never an athlete and I was never much of a pianist, so no problem there. I'm a software engineer and that's mostly sitting down, and that suited me quite well. So that hasn't been too much destroyed by my arthritis. So what I thought we could do today is go through some of the different stages of arthritis that I've had, look at the pain that I've had and how I've dealt with it, and possibly some lessons that almost anybody can take from my experience. So just to start off, I started feeling pain while I was still living in the UK over 28 years ago, and I started feeling it in my feet. And I tried going to a podiatrist who gave me insoles, and that didn't help. I made Aliyah a couple of years later, and it started having trouble in my fingers. I don't know if you can see here, some of my fingers are not quite what they used to be. And following that, I had trouble with my knees. And of course, what did I do when I started feeling terrible pains? Did I jump into action and go and see a doctor? No, I was in denial. And I didn't go and see anybody. And I just lived with it for a few years. Now you can see that the way that it affected me was mostly in my, what's called the distal joints, which is the joints at the end of the fingers and at the end of the feet. So feet and hands was the worst part. So at this stage, I'm going to do a pain meter. So the pain meter at this stage started at 1 with my feet, and then fingers, 2, 3, getting towards 4. And finally, as we were preparing to get married, I saw a doctor. And the doctor gave me, it was a rheumatologist. My GP referred me to a rheumatologist. I had an X-ray, and then I could see very clearly what the problem was. And the first lesson from that is, you know, if at first you don't succeed, keep trying to work out what the problem is. So first you have to work out what the problem is before you can deal with it. So next we're going to go into what I call my surviving phase. So the pain continued to get worse, going from, you know, I'd call it, if we're going up to 10, which is not being able to move at all. So it was beginning to go up to 6 or 7 or 8 even. And I was started on various medical treatments, which didn't work very well for the first 2 years. And every day I was on this painkiller, this 24-hour painkiller, which lasted quite a few hours, less than 24 hours. So for a few hours of the day, I was in quite a lot of pain. And at this time, we still had quite a young family. So I'd get home from work after a 9-hour day, after 2 hours traveling, an hour in the morning, an hour in the evening, and have young children to deal with. So busy the whole time. And one of the things with arthritis is that you have limited amounts of energy. And once you run out of it, that's it, you're finished, you're out, and you can't do anything else. So the first thing to know was when you're not quite controlling your arthritis is you got to know your limitations. And I have to thank Daniel and Noam at this stage, who stopped offering me Hagba after the first couple of times. So we're still not quite back on that. So at this stage, I was sort of surviving through avoiding various things. I The furthest I walked on Shabbat was 3 minutes to the shul, nearest shul. I didn't even go to Avat Zion in those days, just because I couldn't manage it. And it was not only that I felt the pain, you sort of begin to feel a kind of fear as well that stops you from moving. You get a sort of paralysis, and it's very hard to really do anything. You're tired. You feel that you can't do anything. And it was also at that stage when I started seeking alternative treatments as well, because I saw that the medical treatments weren't going well. And I'm going to mention a couple of things. So I went to one person who started saying, well, maybe we can start cutting out a few things. And she did this kinesiology to see what things were affecting me. And I gave up at that time chicken and corn and wheat. So there was so Shabbat for me was you know, not quite ruined, but it wasn't what it's supposed to be. So no challah, no chicken, turkey was okay. And then she went on to say, maybe you need some food supplements. And there was one that I took called Green Magma. I know that it probably sounds very delicious, and it wasn't. And the final straw came really when she said that I should stop wearing blue clothes. Blue clothes, and that's what I was wearing all the time. This is black actually, but I wore blue. That was my color, blue. And that was when I stopped seeing this person. So I gave up on that. But however, there were a couple of things which really did help. And the first was Pilates. And the second was Tai Chi, which I did with Avi Hirsch from the Kehillah. And those things really started to make a difference. And mainly because I wasn't doing anything. I was very tired. I hardly moved at all. I wasn't walking. And these things started moving my joints and started loosening me up. So the pain, I would say the pain meter sort of went down to about a 5 at this stage. So that was relatively good. And then we're going to move on to the next phase here. And the next phase, I'm going to call my thriving phase, because after the first few trials with a few different medications, the doctors came up with this new type of treatment, biological treatment. And once I started on those, it was much, much better. I mean, if you'd have seen me walking around, even the office when I didn't have to work very far in those days, I was hobbling along, and it was, I think people were more shocked than me because I knew it was me, and people seeing me were really shocked. So with this new medical treatment, I would say that the average pain was really moving around, went down to like 2 to 4, and that was really good for me. And it also gave me the option to really look into other things, to not have the arthritis and the pain as such a central part of my life. It made available the options to look into other things. And one of the first thing I want to talk about is shifting the general health approach. And there are a couple of things here. One is watching your weight. It was good to get the weight down because that means there's less stress on the joints. And the other thing is exercise. I mean, I used to think that not moving was good, but you have to have a balance. And really the exercise, I do a lot of walking now. I'm trying to do 10,000 steps a day, which sometimes I do. And that has really helped, not only in moving the joints, but in general well-being and mind and body and spirit. Walking has done wonders. So I really want to recommend exercise, even if it's walking. So much more positive now. And it also meant that I could shift focus in another way. I could move forward and not just be thinking about arthritis all the time, but I wanted to start doing something meaningful, something, you know, what I call projects. So just more recently, you've seen that many people who might have seen that I started a blog. And before that, I was transcribing my grandfather's diaries from World War II. He was a doctor in Burma. And it meant that I could do something which really I felt was making a difference, even if it was, you know, to the family or to other people. And that really gave a lot more meaningfulness in my life. And not only was the pain less, but because I was focusing less on the arthritis, it meant that really, if we're talking about, I've got pains, they're multiplying. So this kind of thing was, I've got pains, they're dividing, because now I was concentrating on other things, and I was able to concentrate less on the pain, on the arthritis, and really make more of my life. Less trying to, you know, make living, you know, more living than just surviving, and more thriving. But nevertheless, I you know, still in the background, I have ups and downs. I still have bad periods, and you probably know that in the morning, especially, it's very bad for arthritis sufferers. It doesn't seem to be clear why that is. I mean, there are several things that I found on the internet why that is, but really you've got to start moving. What I actually found yesterday, that there were 30 different suggestions of what to do to help you in the morning. But the thing that I found as help is really the moving, the walking, and you warm up, and it seems to really make a difference to how you live your day. I have problems when it comes to the transitional times of the year between winter and spring, and also the other times of the year when it's getting from cold to hot, and basically from hot to cold. So basically it turns out that it happens at Sukkot and at Pesach. I don't know if you've ever looked at it this way, but Sukkot is the transition between summer and the cold, and Pesach is between the cold and getting warmer, and the change in the temperature seems to have a difference on the arthritis, or it could be just the stress of the Chag, which possibly Sherri's going to talk about. But those are particularly flare-up times for the arthritis. I would say also that it is in the background, but what's perhaps good, and I'm not sure this is 100% good, but part of the coping mechanism that I have, at least, this is all very personal, is that the times when it's good, when I'm not in pain, then I almost forget about it. It's a kind of thing that you can't really think when you're not in pain how painful something was. And I would say that was really quite positive, because it enables you again to move on, to move forward, to do other things. But just to mention, I mean, it's a continual journey, because I've been on only 5 or 6 different, maybe 5 treatments over the past 28 years. But now they run out eventually. They run out towards the end. Sometimes it's 10 years, sometimes it's 2 years. And I'm just about to start a new a new medication now. And you never know. You don't know if it's going to work straight away or if it's going to take a few months. But I'm still going to try and stick with this moving forward attitude and not focusing my whole life on it. And hopefully that will be good. So in conclusion, I'd just like to say, I haven't mentioned too much. It's been a bit like the Megillat Esther. Claire, you might have noticed that Claire hasn't been mentioned. And I'd like to say now that it's not because she hasn't done anything. Claire has been very patient. She's given me the time that I need to rest, and the encouragement and the freedom to follow up on some of these projects that I've been doing. So I just want to say here that thank you very much for all that you've done for me. And the second conclusion is not to make whatever disease or illness or adversity that you have, don't make that what your life is all about. Find meaningful focus in other areas of your life, in other things that you can do. And I would really emphasize that that's a very important thing to do. And the third thing that is my conclusion is a general health approach. You know, watching your diet and exercise, can't underestimate, undervalue what those have done for me personally in any case. So thank you very much for listening, and any questions?
Okay, if you have questions, please feel free to unmute yourselves. This has actually given me an idea, Simon, for a whole new series of TED Talks about different medical ailments. I think as we get on in age, because it's going to be great.
Sign me up.
Hi, Simon. So first of all, I liked you in blue. You were beautiful in blue. I remember those days. Has there been in any machshava, any of the Rambam, any halachic sources that you have that you've checked out arthritis in the Torah in texts?
Okay, so I haven't actually found as yet, but you know, the posts that I've done on the Gemara are what we've done in Daf Yomi. So when we get to something like that, if there is anything, I don't remember all the different things. I remember there's Askara, but thank God I haven't got that, and I haven't noticed anything, any arthritis things in the text. But if you see anything, point it out to me.
That's why Sherri is next.
I think there is a YU Derech HaTeva, I think is what it's called, that they produce something like this. I've never looked at it to see whether there's arthritis or anything like that in it, but there's a journal.
All right, take a look.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Did you ever try Apos therapy?
Okay, no, send it to me.
The
thing is, I've tried quite a few things, and I'm more or less, you know, happy with what I'm doing at the moment. But you know, I'll take a look.
It's actually not it's a shoe that you wear. No, it's not you know, a treatment per se. It's a customized shoe that they, you know, check your tread and how you're walking and how you're weighting things and adjust that way. Anyway, I have osteoarthritis in my knees, and I've been using that for a number of years, and it has been very helpful.
Okay.
So
send it to me privately, whatever.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Simon, it seems like not only has this been great for us, but also maybe we'll give you a few things to look at as well. Thank you very, very much for sharing your story with us. Much appreciated. Now gives me great pleasure להזמין את שרי ספרסטין, וגם כן בנקודה הזאת אני גם כן אגיד תודה לשרי. אני, שרי ורייצ'ל ברנסון, אנחנו חלק מהוועד Cat Education Committee. אני רוצה להודות גם לשרי וגם לרייצ'ל על כל העבודה שהם עושים, ובמיוחד הערב זה שרי בעצם שהרים את כל הערב, אז ממש ממש תודה. מבחינת, אני צריך להסתכל פה, כי אני לא זוכר את זה בעל פה, אבל שרי תדבר ערב לעשות סדר בבלאגן, קשיי תפקודים ניהוליים לקראת פסח. So שרי, בבקשה.
Where's the sound?
Okay.
Hey.
We've got the share screen.
I went to the doctor yesterday. He told me I have age-activated attention deficit disorder. This is how it manifests itself. I need to wash my car. As I start towards the garage, I notice that there are some letters on the kitchen table. I separate the post into bills and junk mail. I go to put the junk mail in the bin and notice that it's full. But then I think that I may as well pay the bills first. I take my checkbook from my bag and see that there is only one check left. So I go to my desk in my study where I find a bottle of Coke, which I had been drinking. I am about to look for a checkbook when I notice that the Coke is warm. So I decide to put it in the fridge. As I enter the kitchen, I notice the flowers on the worktop need water. I put the Coke down and notice my glasses, which I've been looking for all the morning. I decide that I'd better take them back to my desk, but first I must water the flowers. I spot the TV remote on the table. I know we'll be looking for it tonight, so I decide to take it back to the living room. But first I must water the flowers. I splash some water on them, but some spills on the floor, so I put the remote down to wipe up the spill. Then I continue down the hall, trying to remember what I was planning to do. Now it's the end of the day. The car isn't washed, the bills aren't paid, there's a warm bottle of Coke on the worktop. The flowers aren't watered, there's only one check in my checkbook. I can't find the remote or my glasses, and I don't know what I did with the car keys. I tried to work out why nothing got done today, and I'm baffled because I've been busy, and now I'm really tired.
Okay, can you switch it? Okay, should we put it big? No, I'm gonna mute it. Okay, טוב, קוראים לי שרי ספרשטיין, אני מרפאה בעיסוק.
Do you guys hear?
שומעים? Okay.
We can see you fine. Are you going to be using your screen again?
You don't see my screen?
No, we see it. Are you going to be using it again? I'm asking.
We're using it now. Do you see a PowerPoint presentation?
No, we can still see the YouTube video.
Okay, so we'll do another share. 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, I can still talk.
Do you see this now?
Yes, we can see it.
אוקיי, אז אני מרפאה בעיסוק כבר 28 שנה, ו10 שנים האחרונים אני מתמחה בעבודה עם קשיי קשב וריכוז. אני משתמשת בגישות של אימון ADHD, פואט וקופרמן, שהן גישות לעבודה עם ילדים או הוריהם, מתבגרים או מבוגרים, כדי להגיע איתם למודעות לגבי התנהלות שלהם, והאתגרים בתפקודים ניהוליים שלהם. גם המטרה זה לתת להם באמת את הכלים כדי לשפר תפקוד יום-יום, ולשפר את הגשת המסוגלות בחייהם. אז מה זה באמת תפקודים ניהוליים? תפקודים ניהוליים, כמו שדוקטור רסל ברקלי, פסיכולוג קלינית, כותב, אוסף מיומנויות קוגניטיביות גבוהות, אשר מאפשרות שליטה ובקרה על התנהגות, מחשבה ורגש, ובכך מסייעות להשיג מטרה. באנגלית בצורה קצת אחרת, self-directed activity to change behavior. אם אנחנו חושבים על הסרטון שראינו, באמת לא היה לה שום מכוונות או בקרה על ההתנהגות שלה, והיא לא מגיעה למטרה שלה, שהמטרה הייתה בהתחלה ללכת לשטוף את המכונית שלה, והיא לא השיגה את המטרה. מישהו עם ADHD יש קשיים בכל חלקי החיים, אם זה בשגרת בוקר, ערב, בבית ספר, בעבודה, שעות הפנאי, הכל מושפע מה-ADHD ומושפע מהקשיים בתפקודים ניהוליים. התפקודים ניהוליים, ADHD משפיע באמת על החלק הקדמי, הפרונטל לוב במוח, ושם יושב כל התפקודים ניהוליים, ומשם יוצר את הקשיים. אני אוהבת לקרוא לזה מנהל של המוח, שמשם אנחנו מנוהלים ויכולים להתנהל חיים באופן תקינה ושגרתי, שם יש הבעיה אצלם. אוקיי? אם אני רוצה להיכנס לראות מה באמת המיומנויות האלו, הקוגניטיביות הגבוהות שברקלי מדבר עליהן, זה מתחיל עם המערכת ההפעלה. איך אני מתחילה? אני צריכה להתחיל, לעצור, לתכנן, זה קשור למודעות לזמן. אם יש לי ילד שיש קושי, הוא לא יכול לעצור במשחק ולעלות לקחת למקלחת, לקלח, או לשבת לארוחת ערב. הוא באמצע מה שהוא עושה וקשה לו לעצור. או זה יכול להיות קושי להתחיל את שיעורי בית. יש מיקוד קשב, שאנחנו יודעים שילדים עם קשיי קשב וריכוז, זה הבעיה, שיש להם קושי להתעלם ממשיכים, וגם לעבור מקשב בין מטלות. להתעלם ממשיכים, הם שמים לב שמישהו משתעל, שיש מוזיקה ברקע, שיש את המקרר שמזמזם, ציפור בחלון, והם לא יכולים להתקדם. מה? אוקיי. יש מאמץ, קושי להתאמץ במשהו. זה התמדה במשימה, כדי לסיים אותו, וגם בקצב המתאים. דברים לוקחים הרבה יותר זמן, כי הם לא ממש ממוקדים, אין להם התמדה, או שהם פשוט יעזוב את השיעורי בית ולא יסיים אותו. זיכרון עבודה זה השמירה בזיכרון, אם זה כללים, תוכניות, מטרות, אונליין. כמו האישה הזאת, היא לא שמרה מה היא צריכה לעשות אונליין בתוך היום שלה, והיא לא משיגה את המטרות. וכמובן יש את הוויסות רגשי שאנחנו רואים הרבה פעמים עם הילדים עם ADHD, והם פשוט לא מגיבים בצורה מבוסתת. משהו מעצבן אותם והם מתפוצצים. התהליך הזה הוא תהליך התפתחותי. אנחנו מתחילים כתינוק, מנוהלים על ידי אנשים מבחוץ, כן? מישהו מבחוץ, הורים צריכים לבסט את התינוק, צריך לנהל אותו, וזה באופן ההתפתחותי, מתבגרים, גודלים, עד שיש לנו את יכולת לנהל את החיים של עצמנו בצורה תקינה, לבסט את התגובות שלנו, לדחות סיפוקים, ולהתנהל בחיים, והכל תקין. הקושי הזה, זה לא רק עם אנשים עם ADHD, זה גם יכול להיות בכל מיני תקופות, מישהו שמתפתח אפילו באופן שנחשב תקין, צריך, יכול להיות שיש תקופות, או בגלל איזה מצב רגשי, זה יכול להיות בגלל הגיל, זה יכול להיות עניין של העומס, לחץ, שמשפיע על התפקודים ניהוליים, היכולת לתפקד, התפקודים ניהוליים שלנו, במקום הזה במוח, ויהיה לנו קשיים. חשוב להגיד שזה לא ידע, אני יכולה לדעת מה אני צריכה להצליח במבחן, איך ללמוד, אני יכולה לדעת איך להתארגן לפסח, אבל ההתנהלות שלי לא במיטבי. אוקיי? אז זהו, פסח בא, זו תקופה ממש עמוסה, מתח, לחץ, יש את הניקיונות שצריכים לעשות, קניות שצריכים, אולי להכין איזה סדר ל-30 איש, ופתאום אני בלחץ ומתח ואני לא מתפקדת. אז מה עושים? קודם כל מתחילים בקביעת מטרות ובניית תוכנית, ויש אנשים שזה מספיק והכל יהיה בסדר, אבל הרבה פעמים זה לא מספיק. ולמה? אותם בעיות. יש אנשים שהמערכת ההפעלה יהיה תקוע, והם דוחים, דחיינות, או הם לא מספיק מתארגנים עם הזמן. זה יכול להיות בגלל משיחים, יש טלפונים, יש וואטסאפ, פייסבוק, והמשיחים האלו מושכים אותי מכאן לשם, והקשב שלי לא במקום שצריך להיות. מאמץ, מאוד קשה להתמיד במשימה, שאני לא כל כך רוצה לעשות אותה, או קשה לי, ואני מסתכלת על, לא יודעת, מטבח, או כל מיני מקומות, וזה מאמץ וקשה לי לעשות אותו. אז זיכרון עבודה, אני לא זוכרת את כל התוכניות ומטרות, באותו יום אני תכננתי לעשות, לא יודעת, מדפים באיזה חדר, ושוכחת שהתכוונתי היום, ולא יודעת, לא קורה. הוויסות רגשי זה תמיד יכול להיות משהו תקלה. אוקיי, אז מה עושים? יש הרבה טיפים ודברים שאפשר לעשות, אני אציין כמה מהם. יש רעיון של דיאטה דחיינות, דיאטה ל-30 יום. 30 יום לפני פסח או כמה ימים שיש, אפשר להגיד ולקחת כל יום אני אעשה משהו שאני דוחה, אחרי 30 יום כל ההסתכלות שלי על דברים שאני דוחה יהיה אחרת, ואני פחות אדחה דברים. זה יכול להיות טקס התחלה, אני יודעת שאני צריכה לעבוד, זה קשה לי להתחיל, אבל אני אשים איזה מוזיקה שאני אוהבת, מקפיץ ככה, או שאני יכולה לקחת כוס קפה, טיימר יכול להיות טוב, או להגיד פרק תהילים, מה שיעזור לי, טקס כמו טקס התחלה, ואני יודעת עכשיו אני נכנסת לעבודה. כמובן הסרת משיחים זה משהו מאוד חשוב, לכבות את הטלפון, וכל משהו שיכול להיות המסיח. לחלק עבודה לחלקים יותר קטנים, זה חשוב. גם לילדים, אם אנחנו הם צריכים לעשות איזו עבודה או לימוד למבחן, לעשות חלקים קטנים, אבל גם זה נכון לנו. אם יש לנו עומס, וואו, יש לי פסח להכין, עדיף שאני אסגר, אוקיי, היום אני לוקחת את המדף הזה, או החדר הזאת, וזהו, אני עכשיו יכולה להקל את זה. יש את הפומודור טכניק. הפומודור טכניק זה אומר שאני שמה טיימר 25 דקות, ב-25 דקות האלו אני רק בעבודה, אני רק ממוקדת מטרה, ואני לא עונה לטלפונים, אני לא בודקת שום פייסבוק, שום כלום, אני ממוקדת. מצלצל, 5 דקות יש לי הפסקה, מנוחה, אני יכולה כן לבדוק, כן לפתוח טלפון, עוד 25 דקות ועוד 5 דקות מנוחה. אחרי 3-4 פעמים אני יכולה לקחת רבע שעה, וכך אני באמת יכול להשיג הרבה מהמטרות שלי. יש לנו את הפרקינסונס לו, הפרקינסונס לו זה אומר שיש לי, שכל הזמן שיש לי זה הזמן שזה ייקח. אם יש לי 3 שבועות לעשות איזו עבודה, איזו מטלה בבית ספר, זה ייקח לי 3 שבועות. אם יש לי 3 ימים, זה ייקח לי 3 ימים. ואני יכולה לעשות את זה למטלות של פסח. זה יכול לקחת לי באמת חודש, זה יכול לקחת לי חצי שנה. אם אני אומרת 3 ימים, או לא יודעת, פרק זמן, אני יכולה לייצב את הזמן, אני אעשה את זה שם. ואז אני יכולה להגיד, אוקיי, אני מסיימת פסח פה, אני אצא לטיול עם המשפחה. אני יכולה לקבוע, זה חוק וזה עובד וזה נכון. אז כן להשתמש בכל מיני טריקים וטכניקות שיעזרו לי. שנייה אחת. אז מה שאני רוצה להגיד ולסיים, שקודם כל קשיי תפקוד זה קושי בהתנהלות ולא בידע. זה מאוד מאוד חשוב. כי אומרים, למה? הם יודעים, לא אמרתי להם 1000 פעמים, יכול להיות שאמרתי 1000 פעמים, יכול להיות שהם הבינו בפעם הראשונה, אבל ההתנהלות שלהם, אם זה ילד או לא יודע, זה לקוי וזה הבעיה. זה כן משהו ביולוגי, המקור ביולוגי. יכול להיות קשיים, אפילו אם אין לנו ADHD, זה יכול להיות קשיים בתפקוד והתנהלות. ומה שעוזר בעיקר זה תומכים חיצוניים. אם אין לי את היכולת פנימית, אני חייבת להעביר את זה למשהו חיצוני. אז אם זה טיימר, אם זה יומן, אם זה רעיונות שנתתי, אם זה מישהו אחר שיכול לתמוך בי ולהזכיר לי, אני צריכה, אם אין לי את זה פנימי, אני חייבת חיצוני. מה שחשוב זה להיות סובלניים, ואמפתיים כלפי הילדים שלנו, כלפי בני זוג שלנו, כלפי עצמנו, לקראת כל התקופה שבה של פסח, וחשוב לתת את התמיכה שצריך כדי שהתפקוד יהיה אופטימלי, ובאמת יגיע לכל המטלות ומשימות הנדרשות, וככה נצליח להגיע לסדר. תרתי משמע. זהו.
יפה, תודה רבה שרי. When I saw that movie, I was laughing so much. I thought they were normal. I didn't realize that was problematic behavior. Questions? If anybody would like to unmute themselves, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, I'd like to ask if the solutions are different for adults rather than children.
They're not vastly different. The idea is finding what works and finding that outward tool that's going to help you. And I think most of them are very similar. The idea to break things down, the idea to use a yoman, to use a timer. I think they're pretty much they're basically the same. I mean, I don't know if I would start trying to think, explaining them the Pomodoro technique, Parkinson's, in such words, but yeah, they're the same idea. It's making things, outward tools to help reminders to control what you're not able to actually do, but often pnimi. But the hatama is going to be to a specific individual, whether it's a child or whether it's an adult. The same thing might not, you have to find what's matim for that person, what works. Sometimes I've gone into schools and I sit down with the teacher and the yoetzit and the parents, sometimes the child's there, and trying to figure out in that specific case, what they need. And you do the hatama based on the person. And that's true if it's a child or if it's an adult.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Sherri, for sharing. Toda rabba.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's get a question.
Sure, let's take the last question with pleasure, and then we'll start our next one.
Is there a way that, I'm Simon's brother, Philip, the less famous brother. Very interesting topic, Sherri. Is there a way that one can know when with the onset of this stress is happening, where someone is becoming overwhelmed? Outwardly the symptoms are that people forget things. But is there a point where you sort of can see, or one can self-determine when they're becoming overwhelmed before it's too late?
I'm not sure. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by too late, because you can always realize, take a step back and say, okay, I need help. I need a tool, or I need to talk to someone, or I need to, I'm trying to think. I mean, I think it's individual. I don't know if I have an answer specifically. I think a lot of it is there's a lot of muda'ut and work on muda'ut. If someone would come to me, I would say, sit down and discuss with them where, what are the issues, what are they seeing, and what, but once you've, come across this, let's say, so you have to take it for yourself and say, okay, wait a second, when am I feeling lachatz? When do I need to say, wait a second, I need to stop and think about this? I think it's an individual thing. I don't have a specific nikuda that I can say that's when someone starts, to identify when they're feeling illness. It's so individual. But when you're feeling that, that's, I don't see that it's ever too late. You can always stop and say, okay, I'm gonna do better tomorrow. I'm going to relook at things and analyze, either by yourself on your own, or looking at videos or books, or speaking to someone.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that answered. I hope it gives some direction.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sherri. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, everyone. Now I'm up. I'm going to try to keep to my time as much as I can. 1 second. Let me just see that I can actually see myself working over here. Everybody else is muted. Just a moment. Okay, hold on. Okay, very good. So those of you who I haven't mentioned before, my name is Zev Jacobson. And I see quite a few of my family on, although they don't have their video on. Sada and the kids are all on, and my mom and my uncle. So thank you very much for joining, everybody. It's very good to see you. So tonight I'm speaking about compassion, which is the ultimate competitive advantage in a cutthroat business environment. But I want to start off not actually speaking about the business world, but something that I went through before I started in the business world, and that's in the army. So when I went to the army, I was about 23 years old. And while I didn't suffer like Simon did from arthritis, I wouldn't consider myself to be really an Olympic athlete by any stretch of the imagination. Truth is, I had a hard time physically in the army. I was in Nachal. And what I want to talk about is, we used to do when we would have our masaot, when we would have our marches, part of the masa, you'd walk whatever it was 10 kilometers, it was 50, and then it got later to 30 and 50 kilometers. For the last part of the masa, they would open up stretchers, alunkot, and the mufakdim would choose somebody to get onto the stretcher. Usually it was the heaviest guy. And for the last couple of kilometers, we would have to carry them back to the base. There's 4 people underneath the alunka. And what's supposed to happen is everybody goes in a line behind. And every once in a while, when you're ready to swap somebody, you tap them on the shoulder, you go underneath the alunka, they move out, and you continue. And that way, everybody has a chance to go through. And at the beginning, I was a soldier, which I would consider myself what's called a mural, like really, go-getting. And the first time I was like, under that stretcher, and really going over there and giving it my all. But I started to notice that there were a few people in my machlaka who weren't exactly so gung-ho and somehow never tapped me on the shoulder to come and swap me. And these guys were like, you know, we were all puffing and panting and going uphill with a stretcher. And these guys were just hanging in the back over there and just, you know, moseying along. And sometimes they were the ones who were actually volunteering to get onto that stretcher. And that's when I learned after the mural, I learned my next very important Israeli concept. And that's called friar. As everybody knows, don't be a friar, don't be a sucker. Why should you be the one who's putting in all the effort and nobody else is? And on that next masa, I was like, well, I'm not doing it. Like if these other guys aren't going to be involved, I'm not doing it either. Why should I? I'm not going to be the sucker. But I found that as this mindset started to permeate, that I actually started to enjoy being in the army a lot less. It wasn't so much fun anymore because the whole time I was looking at, hold on a second, you know, like I'm putting in this effort. Is everybody else doing it? What did the other person do? That's not fair. I don't want to be a friar. What I'm going to be, you know, I'm going to be kicked around. I'm going to be the sucker. And the truth is, it wasn't just me who was starting to feel like there were quite a few guys in the machlaka. And it became like a very unpleasant atmosphere. But then there was a friend of mine. His name is Amit, still friends with him today. Fantastic guy, a real leader. And he didn't care about all these guys who were, you know, worrying about being friars. He was the one who was always under there. He was the one who would always swap you. If you needed help, he was always there. And at the beginning, I thought I was like, you know, here I am, I'm the chutznik, but you know something? You're the friar. But as time went on, I started to realize that it wasn't like that at all. And the more Amit modeled the behavior of actually caring about other people and putting in all that he possibly could and helping everyone, it wasn't just in the Masaot that he did it, but it was in everything that he did, we started to follow it. And we started to care a lot more about each other as well. We stopped looking the whole time, what's the other person doing? Instead of asking the whole time, what's everybody else doing? I would ask, what's the most that I can do? What's the best that I can do? And in actual fact, he helped to form us into a proper unit where we felt I'm going to call, you know, they talk about the achva and the re'ut. For the purposes of my talk, I'll call it the compassion, where we felt compassion towards each other. We felt an empathy with each other. We wanted to help each other as much as we possibly could. And we stopped looking after our own back and how could we help somebody else. And that's when, once again, it started to become fun. I'm going to jump forward for a moment to the business world. I wouldn't consider myself to be like a majorly successful businessman. I've been unemployed for the last year because of Corona. But one thing that I have learned in the years that I've been in business is that business is about relationships, and relationships are about compassion. Business is about relationships, and relationships are about compassion. And that is true whatever business you're in. You're dealing with people most of the time. And when you're dealing with people, the best way to get what you want is to be able to help people get what they want. And in order to do that, one needs to have compassion. And I'm going to go through a number of different areas in the business world, at least where I see, again, this is just from my experience, how this fits in. So number one, I'll talk about with suppliers. You know, I'm also a tour guide. And, you know, there's always that moment when you turn up at Ben Gurion Airport, well, not always, I mean, this used to be, it sounds like science fiction. Turn up at Ben Gurion Airport to meet the group and you wheel them out. Everyone's got all their luggage and everything. And then you go and you meet the bus driver for the first time. You know, this is the bus driver you're going to be with for the next 10 days. And any successful tour guide will tell you that the relationship with the bus driver is absolutely key. And, you know, you see some tour guides that go, hey, nahagus, tach da bagage, or whatever, and they start, you know, as they meet the guy, they start ordering him around or what have you. And, you know, so the bus drivers, they'll do what you need to do. But whenever I would meet the bus driver, first of all, I'd try and meet them before I actually walk out with everybody. I'd make sure I'd call him up, Boker Tov, Ma Shlomcha. I'd offer to get him a coffee from inside. How are you doing this morning? Where did you come from? You know, a little bit of small talk. And I found that it made a huge difference. Because, you know, in the morning, when you first meet the bus driver, and he's kind of taking instructions from you. But when you're stuck, you know, you just finished the Chilabun and the bus driver's in the wrong car park and you need him to come on this dirt road, which isn't like really such a great road to come through, whatever. And you're like, yeah, if you've got a good relationship with him, he'll be there for you and he'll come and do what needs to be done. There was, as I'm talking, I'm remembering, there was a particular bus driver called Ophir, who had a very good relationship with her. And we were driving back from an army base one night. We did a barbecue with, you know, for the soldiers with a group from the States. And we were driving back, it was with the Golani Brigade. We were driving back and I'm following Waze. And as we're driving along, I see like I'm taking us into this Arab village. And the roads are getting like smaller and smaller and the buses like, you know. And Ophir says to me, he says, listen, you know, you're following Waze, but I'm telling you, like, we're making a mistake. Like, let's stop over here and let's work together and try and get ourselves out before we get ourselves in real trouble. And I'm mentioning it because when you have compassion towards people and you care about them and you're interested in them, then they're also there to help you. And it's not this, you know, dog eat dog sort of environment. The dealing with suppliers is very important to have compassion because it doesn't take long before the tables are turned and you're the one who needs help. And then, okay, now suddenly you need something. But if you have that relationship with your suppliers and you have that compassion, then it certainly helps you. The next one is with clients. I suppose these days, you know, you really can't talk about anything in business without mentioning Amazon. So, okay, here, I'm going to mention Amazon. Everybody knows, I don't know if it's real, true or the legend, that at every single Amazon board meeting, there's always one chair empty. One chair empty. And that's not for Eliyahu Hanavi or the Russians who couldn't join the Seder or whatever, but that empty chair is there to symbolize the client. Because the client needs to have a place at the table. And whenever they're making a decision, a business decision about a product, a service, whatever it is, the question is, well, how is this good for the client? Does the client want this service? And if the answer is no, then we're not doing it. As wonderful as it seems, the bells and whistles and functions, everything else we may have, if the client doesn't want it, then we're not interested. And when you're in a business like mine, a service industry, for sure, having empathy for the client is key. It's not so important, you know, as a tour guide, and there's a few tour guides on this call as well, you know, what's important is not what you say, it's very often is what you don't say. You have to understand, where is this client coming from? What's their background? You have to try and put yourselves in their shoes and try and understand, what do they want out of this trip? And all that requires empathy, and that requires compassion. The truth is that it's not just when things are going well. Obviously, you know, you want to build a rapport with your clients. I still have clients. It was my birthday last week, and so everybody remembers, of course, because of Facebook. But I have clients who are writing to me on WhatsApp, wishing me happy birthday. And these are people that I've, you know, I guided around in Israel 10 years ago, but we still have a relationship. Because as I said before, business is built on relationships, and relationships is built on compassion. Compassion, part of that is empathy. And you really see it when clients have complaints, when they're really upset about something. And not just a tour guide, also a tour company. And very often things go wrong. You know, people call you up and they're very upset, and the room's no good, and this didn't work, and the tour guide's terrible, and 1,000,001 complaints, and they're like, and you know, very often the initial reaction is to start fighting back. It's like, what do you mean? And it's your fault, and I told you, and I sent the email, and don't shout at me, and I'm not prepared to listen to you like this. And we were all in these situations where, you know, we have the problems with people. But what I try and do is not try and stop, not try and understand. Okay, let me understand. What is your complaint? Because if you're feeling something, then that's something that I need to deal with, whether it's valid or not valid or whatever it is. The fact that you're feeling it means that I need to deal with it. And I need to respect your feelings. I need to understand them. I need to take cognizance of them. The fact that you're feeling something, I need to validate them as well. And when I'm able to do that, I'm able to build a relationship. There's a funny thing. I mean, there was a couple who came to Israel, and we had a group of about 400 people. We moved them from a hotel in the north to a hotel in Jerusalem. And in our wisdom, we decided we were going to collect all the luggage from their rooms, put it in a luggage truck, bring it to Jerusalem, and deliver it to all the rooms. And of course, the one suitcase that got lost was from the leader of the group who was highly upset, and because they had their medication in there, diabetic, and they need to find it. And like, I'm running around the David Citadel Hotel trying to find these things, and they're like getting really upset, and understandably so. And finally, at about 1:30 in the morning, I managed to locate the suitcase. I remember her knocking on the door, and she comes in a nightgown to answer the door, and she gives me like this huge hug for finding her suitcase. Because when you have the empathy for the people, and you're willing to go that extra mile, then any crisis that you have can actually serve to cement that relationship and further the relationship as opposed to breaking it off. And the truth is as well, it's the same thing with negotiation. You know, you're negotiating with people, you're negotiating with suppliers, with clients, whatever it is. And you come, no, I want it to be X. And the person says, no, I want it to be Y. And you can start arguing and see, okay, let's have an arm wrestle here. You know, who's going to manage to bring the other person down? Well, I managed to get you, or you managed to get me. Who's going to be the fryer? Who's going to give him? And you say, no, hold on a second, let's have a look. You want X, Y? What are the reasons? What are your needs? And when I take myself and I have compassion and empathy towards the people I'm negotiating with, there's a much higher chance that I can actually reach a settlement that's good for everybody, because sometimes you can win the negotiation. You can get the price down enough, but then you find out that you actually lose out because there's no cutting corners. You know, why did you manage to get you know, the bus, the cost of the bus? Why did you manage to get it down? You know, from X amount, you got it down 75%. Great. It's because they sent you to a company in East Jerusalem where they don't really pay the drivers properly, and now the guy's relying on his tips. You know, you don't get the service that you need. So if you take the moment and you have the compassion and the empathy with people that you're negotiating with, there's a much higher chance that you'll reach a settlement that is actually good for both of you. Because as I said, business is about relationships, and it's not just a once-off thing. If you want to have a relationship with people, you really need to care about them. And as well, for your staff, you know, when you're running a company or you're managing people, you're in charge of people, you're paying their salary. And at the end of the day, they kind of need to do what you tell them to do. But that sort of loyalty doesn't go very far. But if you care about the people that you work with, and they know that you care, and you have their backs, and they know that you have their backs, and there's no limit to what people will do for you. They'll go to the ends of the earth for you because they care. They'll buy into your vision, they'll buy into you as a person, and they'll do whatever it takes to make things go well. And this never ceases to amaze me, you know, like a lot of the hotels that we go to, you know, people will complain that the security guard didn't speak to them nicely, didn't open up the door for them. Or the person at reception was rude. You know, they had a complaint and they called up and they just didn't deal with them. So a part of it is, you know, people say, you know, it's Israel, whatever it is. But then you go to the back office and you see how very often the reception manager speaks to his staff and treats them like dirt, and then expects them to go out and be nice to everybody else. And what I've always believed is that the way you treat your staff, the way you treat your people, that is how they're going to treat your clients. And if you want to keep clients, you need to keep staff. And if you want to keep good staff, you need to care about them. You need to be there for them as much as you possibly can. But there's a catch to all of this. And with this, I'll end. When I was studying in yeshiva in Har Etzion, so those of you who know the yeshiva, it's quite a big place, and there's always, you know, where exactly do you get to sit? And my first in yeshiva, when I first came on NTA as part of the B'nai program, they gave me a seat on the rampa. And the rampa overlooks all of the Beit Midrash. So it's quite a cool seat. You know, when you got your ADHD, like Kashey was talking about before, you don't really feel like studying, whatever, you look up and you see what's going on. And right in front of me, about 4 or 5 rows from the back, was where Rav Shlomo Fisher, who was the Mashgiach Ruchani, sat. And I would watch how from the early morning, not that I was there in the early morning, or whenever I got there to the Beit Midrash, until late at night, he was sitting, talking to the Israeli Bachurim. Some people came, they weren't sure, they were going into the army, they weren't sure which Yechidah to go to. And other guys, you know, finished the army and were having trouble, you know, dealing with yeshiva and getting back to it. And people were coming and, you know, had questions about shidduchim. Not that I didn't hear all of this stuff, right? But this is all sorts of questions. And all day I would see Rav Shlomo sitting there, listening, patiently giving his advice, speaking to some guys it was for 5 minutes, for some guys it was half an hour, for some guys he would talk for literally an hour or two, so much patience. And I remember we had a tish for all the boys on MTA, and which Rav Shlomo was giving. And afterwards, of course, they had the questions and answer sessions. And I said to Rav Shlomo, Rav Shlomo, can you please explain to me, how do you give the impression to all of these boys that you really care? I mean, you're talking to them all day. How do you give the feeling to each of them that you care so much? And he said to me, and I'll never forget this, he said, the way that I do it is because I really care. You can't fake it. You have to really care. But if you're able, in any situation, to be able to look at the people, and don't just look at them as, you know, somebody who's out there to, you know, to fill your needs and fill your aims and do something for you, but someone who's there, who's a person who has a life, who has needs, who has wants, who has importance, if you can look at every single person like that, and look at every single interaction as an opportunity to either build that relationship or destroy that relationship, then I believe that the compassion very much has a place in business. Because as I said at the beginning, business is about relationships. Relationships is all about people. It's all about compassion. So I'm sorry that we've gone a little bit past the time. But thank you everybody for joining. If there's any questions, you're more than welcome. And then we'll end off. Okay, no questions. So thank you very much to Ateret, to Simon, to Sherri for joining, for speaking on tonight's TED Talks. Thank you very, very much for all of you for joining. And we look forward to seeing you at our next event, which please God will be the Siyum on Masechet Pesachim, which is going to be in the week just before Pesach. So if you're looking for an excuse to stop your cleaning for a few moments, then that's it. Toda rabba v'shavua tov. Bye-bye.